Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making lumpia. I've never made these before, so I'm pretty excited to try this recipe out. So let's start with the filling. So for the filling, I have 6 ounces of Napa cabbage. You could use regular cabbage if that's what you have at home. We're mincing this up very finely and adding it to 2 pounds of ground pork. You could substitute the pork for chicken or beef. It's completely up to you. To this, we're going to add a half of a teaspoon of chicken bouillon, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, and a half of a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. Now we're also going to need a 1-inch piece of ginger that we're going to mince up as finely as possible. As well as 6 cloves of garlic, and I like to mince my garlic over my ginger just to ensure that any of those larger chunks of ginger that I may have missed get minced up really nicely as well. Just going to use my bench scraper to add this to the filling ingredients. Next up, we have 2 large room temperature eggs that we're just going to crack and lightly beat before we add to our filling mix. Now I like to get in there with my hands just to make sure all the filling ingredients are really well incorporated. And you want to stir in one direction. I don't know if that is a law when you're making dumplings, but that's just what I've heard. So cover that up and pop that in the fridge while we work on our lumpia wrappers. So to 2 cups of all-purpose flour, I've added 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, a half of a teaspoon of kosher salt, and half of a teaspoon of a neutral oil. Now while whisking the dry ingredients, we're going to add in 1.5 cups of water. This is going to be about the consistency of a pancake batter without the lumps. So just continue to add your oil and whisk until there are no more lumps in your mixture. I'm going to switch over to my Dutch whisk because this does a much better job on these heavier batters. Now over low heat, I have a non-stick skillet. I'm just using a pastry brush to start painting on a thin layer of our batter. I know there's a way of doing this by slapping it down with your hand and swiping it around, but I've never made these before, so I figured this might be a little easier for all of us. So just paint a very thin layer, and this is only going to cook for 40 to 50 seconds. This cooks very quickly, and you may not think this is going to be strong enough to hold the filling, but it will surprise you at how strong these little wrappers are. Now once those edges start to curl up, you're going to know that this is almost completely cooked. So just go in there with your hands, just be careful because it is a little warm. Flip it over, give it a little zhuzh, and we're going to serve these on a plate, but cover them with a damp towel to keep them moist. So we're going to just continue to paint on a thin layer. Let this cook for 40 to 50 seconds until those edges start to come up. And this recipe yielded me 24 wrappers. I did go in after I finished filming and made a second batch because I wanted to use up all of my filling. But for now, we're just doing 24. So this is the last of this batch of batter. Just paint that on. Let it cook until those edges start to curl. Give it a little flip, and now we're ready to start filling our lumpia. So take one of your wrappers, lay it down on your workbench, and just add in a teaspoon and a half filling to the edge closest to you, leaving about 1/4 inch. Now just start rolling this up like a burrito, tucking in those sides. And I'm going to place this on a parchment lined baking sheet because we're not going to cook all of these today. We are going to freeze some of them. So I like to leave them on the baking sheet, pop them in the freezer and let them freeze completely, and then take them out, put them in a little Ziploc, and then you have lumpia to fry whenever your heart desires. So we're just going to continue to fill and roll and place on our baking sheet until all of our wrappers are used up. And as I mentioned before, I went in and made a second batch after I filmed this because I wanted to use all of our filling, and I used only about half while I was filming this. And I didn't want any of that filling to go to waste. When I do dumplings like this, I like to say I've started a dumpling factory because you are standing and filling. This took about an hour between making the wrappers and filling all of the lumpia. So it is a labor of love. So this is what they look like. I'm just going to cover them with a towel while we heat up some oil on the stove. Now I've heated up the oil to about 360, and we're going to start placing in our little lumpia rolls. You don't want to overcrowd the pan. You want to give these room to crisp up. And the ones I'm not cooking right now, I am going to pop in the freezer because there's only so many lumpia one person can eat, and I can eat a lot. So we're going to let these fry until they're golden brown. This took about 7 minutes. I just want to make sure that pork filling is cooked all the way through. So I'm just giving these a little flip. And then once they're golden brown, I'm taking them out and putting them on some paper towel to drain. And I did hit this with a little salt once they're out of the hot oil. Now to plate, you could put this on a base of lettuce. I'm just going to place these directly onto the plate. And try and make it a little fancier and do kind of a pyramid, I guess. But I'm serving this with a Thai chili sauce, which I have a bottled one that I found in the Asian aisle of my grocery store. Just in a little serving dish. And that one has decided it wants me to eat it, so let's give this a taste. The pork filling is really flavorful. You taste the ginger, you taste the garlic, you taste that soy. And this wrapper is crisp and shattery. It is really amazing that that thin little wrapper made this beautiful little lumpia. These are delicious and a perfect snack for any time. But there it is, lumpia. I hope you guys try to make it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you loved it, hit the notification bell and subscribe because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and until next time, happy cooking. Okay. Oh my god, it worked! Ah! It worked! First ever lumpia wrapper.